right, we're off here for round number 3. Both players 2-0. Zine Brunny on your right with Grixis Shadow. Joshua Waddell on your left with Tron. Brunny starts the game off with a turn 1 Ragavan, an ideal start if there ever was one.
Yeah, that is definitely best possible here. Having the mana, you know, not only the pressure, but also the mana to be able to start deploying more threats like Ledger Shredder, which has been a big recent addition to Grixis Shadow,
right?
While still holding up some interaction. So, like here with a 3rd mana, I would love to see Ledger Shredder plus a discard spell. Connive with my Shredder, get even more pressure, disrupt, you know, the Tron deck. That would be an excellent start.
All right, Brunny here connects with the Ragavan, finds just a land, can't play it. Gonna go for a Mishra's Bauble first. That means there's no Ledger Shredder hiding out. The treasure token can allow for a pretty explosive turn here. We'll see what Brunny comes up with. Doesn't like the top card of the deck with the Bauble, decides to shuffle it away with a fetch, and we'll see what the following play is.
Classic fetch land, turning Mishra's Bauble into opt.
Yeah, no kidding. Mishra's Bauble, one of those cards that for years and years in Modern saw basically no play. At some point, I remember Patrick Chapin, when Monastery Mentor was printed, just said, wow, this card's kind of nuts with Monastery Mentor. It's a free card draw effect, works well with the fetches, and the Gurmag Anglers that he was playing.
Yeah, I remember when he built that deck. It was for a Pro Tour that he... I
believe it's Favor Forge. That was right when Monastery Mentor came out. I was at that one. I played Grixis Splinter Twin. No. Actually, it's 4-color. I had Ancient Grudge.
Unfortunately for him, one of the most played decks in that Pro Tour was Burn, and Burn was not a good matchup.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the Great Revel, an excellent Magic card against all these decks that play Mishra's Bauble and those cheap cantrip effects. Expressive Iteration here, the play from Bruni. He's going to find Drown in the Lock as the find, but it's just going to get exiled. Going to keep a card. That means he had already played a land, didn't have anything cool to play.
Drown, a bit of an awkward card in this matchup because there's so many high casting cost things out of Tron, and they don't really fill their graveyard that well. All right. Thoughtseize is interesting because that Warping Whale is a removal spell for Ragavan, given that it only has 1 toughness.
Yep.
And you can't really disrupt anything else. This is a natural Tron hand, I believe.
It's impossible to tell. I can't even tell what half the cards are. Is that an Urza Saga? Is he playing Saga in the deck?
No, there's a mine in play. Oh, yeah, that is an Urza Saga.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool card. It finds some of those interesting singleton artifacts. It can find Expedition Map. This is an interesting build of a Tron deck. We're going to see him take the Warping Wheel, though, and protect his Ragavan.
That card to the right of the Urza Saga.
I think it's a Wormcoil engine, but I'm not
positive. It's a Wormcoil?
Look, all these alternate art cards are literally ruining my life. Zine Brunny doing the thing that Ross Merriam always forgets to do, and that's draw a card with Mishra's Bauble.
I don't do that very
Healed
often.
Warping Well off the top is going to take care of the Ragavan, so the texture of this game just changed significantly. And if Josh Waddell next turn has natural Tron, Bruni's going to be in some serious trouble. Draws for turn, finds Dragon Rage Channeler, another piece of potential pressure. Decides to go for another Expressive Iteration, maybe digging for some more disruption. Finds Ledger Shredder, Shadow, and another Expressive Iteration. Puts Ledger Shredder off to the side. I think he doesn't have another land. Might put Shadow in hand and just have a second bricked Expressive Iteration. Iteration, one of those cards where the later the game goes, the more powerful it is. But if you're not finding lands off of it, oftentimes it just kind of trades 1 for 1. Not so great.
Yeah, looks like that Urza Saga is a singleton here. Nice little late game card to find off of like a Sylvan Scrying. Yeah. Give yourself some threats.
Decides to play the Saga here. A great find off of Golos Tireless Pilgrim too. A very diverse. Heavy threat in his hand.
So there was no natural Tron. That card in hand that looked like a 3rd Tron land is something completely different. Who knows?
All right, but this is a 3rd Expressive Iteration here. Let's see if Bruni can find the mana source, finds a Death Shadow, puts a card in hand. I wonder if that card is a fetch land. It is. So this is going to unlock the Death Shadow. Bruni's going to go to 10. That's going to allow for a 3/3 Shadow to come down, but the shields are down. No access to any sort of disruptive element here. Just pressure from the Shadow, and we'll see if Waddell can capitalize on this early stumbling from Bruni.
Yeah, going to be a question of if Waddell can find this latest, the last piece of Tron here in time. That's an Ancient Stirrings, I believe, off the top. Does have a Forest, could cast it, but then can't play it for turn.
Sure, but could activate a Saga to find, or just generate a blocker for the Death Shadow to potentially protect life total while you dig for the Tron piece.
Other option is this Baby Karn. Could potentially find an Ensnaring Bridge to lock out these Death Shadows.
Yeah, and very few of these Grixis Shadow decks play Kolaghan's Command main deck anymore, so something like Ensnaring Bridge might actually be game over. We'll take a peek at the deck list real quick and see.
I see some Kolaghan's commands in the sideboard, but yeah, none of them in the main.
All right, we find a third Tron piece. I believe that is the missing Urza's Tower. And now, next turn, he is going to have access to a ton of mana. Can still make a chump blocker here with the Ultra Saga for the Death Shadow. Can also just take a small hit if Brony doesn't actually pump the Shadow at all. It's only a 3/3 attacking, not that devastating.
Yeah, I think Brony needed a brick there from Waddell and did not get it.
All right, it's hard to ask for Tron to brick too much, you know. He didn't have Tron on 3, didn't have Tron on 4. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
you know? How much more lucky can you get? No land, though, so that means this attack is just going to be for 3 unless Brony does some Lightning Bolt himself or something like that. Maybe cycles Street Wraith, but no Street Wraith in this version of the deck. Thanks so that you got this. That's a known unknown. We have a follow-up Dragon Race Channeler. Likely has Delirium. Haven't checked the graveyard fully.
I see Mishra's Bauble, Expressive Iteration, a fetch land, and is there an instant there?
The Thoughtseize. So I don't know if I think instant can come online easily with the Unholy Heat, just like targeting Shadow for 2 damage or something.
Yeah, we saw Drown on the Lock earlier, but that got exiled from the Expressive Iteration, so not in the graveyard to add an instant.
Yep. And the only other card cast, I believe, was a Thoughtseize. So draw for turn. Saga going to trigger, going to 3. Now he has a thing, do I activate or do I just float a mana? And considering he's going to go Tron and have access to a boatload of mana, I actually like just floating here because the Tron lands currently only tap for 1 and you have to tap one of them.
Yeah. Second construct just not valuable enough to cost yourself what should be a very powerful turn here.
Yep. All right, and we'll see what he goes and gets. Looks like an Expedition map. Interesting.
Maybe trying to find a Sanctum of Ugin.
Well, he also has a Kozilek Butcher of Truths in hand, and so that might go find another Urza's Tower to allow that to be cast next turn.
Yeah, only not access to 9 mana here, so a little short on Kozilek.
Yeah, should be able to cast it next turn, though, assuming that the map is able to be popped, but we'll see what the play is. We have a mana floating, we have Tron, so that's 9 total, so it could go for a 7-drop, plus go cracking of the map.
It looks like a Eugene S. Dragon.
That's a huge dragon. All right. Eugene comes down.
-1.
Yeah, -1 seems like the play. Bruni here does have an Unholy Heat in hand, so could take the Ugin Spear Dragon out.
Well, does he have Delirium?
I don't. That's what I'm saying. He might not have it yet, so this could be potentially dangerous.
I think it's just land, sorcery, artifact in the graveyard here for Bruni.
Now, one desperation play could be to... Ooh.
Yeah. Okay, drown, kill your token. That adds instant to my graveyard. Do it in response, so I get my Surveil with Dragon's Rage Channeler, so good timing on that.
Yep.
You know, the drown not really related to the Ugin, it's related to the DRC.
All right. So the Unholy Heat now should have Delirium turned on. As the Unholy Heat is cast, it doesn't check for itself, so you have to count what Delirium is with it on the stack. But now, with the Drown Unlock in the graveyard, that is going to turn on Delirium, so the Ugin, while very powerful here, is going to be checked. And we'll see if Bruni can rebuild.
Has plenty of stuff to rebuild with here, and no pressure. I mean, Waddell has plenty of stuff to rebuild. Zine with no pressure on his side. Okay, there's a shadow. That's something.
That's a couple of shadows and a fetch land.
That's a couple of somethings.
This is actually a pretty scary rebuild here for Bruni, and we'll see if Waddell can check it. If that card is a Wormcoil Engine, like I suspect, Wormcoil could be a great card here to fight through the shadows.
Yeah, you know what card is good against Wormcoil Engine? Dress Down.
Oh,
block Shadow. Now I got a 13/13. You got a 6/6 with no abilities.
Yeah.
You can go to 2. Your Wormcoil dies.
Yeah, we'll see if he has it.
Only 1 Dress Down in the main here for our Shadow player.
It's a card that started to see a lot more play between main and side as a check to those Urza Sagas.
Oh, yeah, that's not what's... where are those lands going? Yeah, they can stay there.
So we got 1 mana floating here. Still Scrying going to be the cast. So yeah, going to find another tower that's going to unlock Kozilek for next turn. Still a little short this turn, I believe.
Yep, going to have 8 mana from the 2 towers, and the mine has 1, or the power plant has 1 mana floating from the mine forest tap to cast the Scrying. So 9 mana total here at this point. Does have a baby Karn.
Yeah, could go Karn for Ensnaring Bridge.
We're still unsure what that last card in Waddell's hand is.
Could be a planar portal for all I know, man. It's just so... It's just a border of a card I've literally never seen before. But it does look like an artifact. I have to imagine if it's Wormcoil Engine, it would have been cast already, because it's such a powerful card here against the Death Shadows. But Karn into Ensnaring Bridge is also a great answer. The only problem is that Waddell doesn't know necessarily if Bruni actually has access to something like Kolaghan's Command. And if he goes for the Ensnaring Bridge, he's kind of putting all his eggs in the basket of the Ensnaring Bridge, and he has to find a way to win the game that doesn't involve attacking, which is not always the easiest to do for a Tron deck.
Yeah, only one Ugin left. That would be a great way to try to do it.
And a giant Walking Ballista is usually the way to do it. Maybe a Karn reset, so like you start the game with a ton of permanents.
I would love to see a Karn reset.
It's been a while.
That is an Ensnaring Bridge.
Alrighty. Well, we can also cycle with the Chromatic Sphere, but he doesn't want to actually have that card in hand, so we're just going to go ahead and play Bridge. 2 in hand. Shadows are currently only 3/3, but they cannot attack with Waddell only having 2 in hand.
Yeah. You can also exile your own Ensnaring Bridge and win by attacking with your Karn.
That's true. Once the game state is settled.
Yeah. Once you have, 17 Eldrazi in play.
All right, Mishra's Baubles the cast. Karn is actually locking it down, so can't be sacrificed, and it looks like Bruni's just going to give it up. No access to Kolaghan's Command in the main deck, and the Ensnaring Bridge is going to be a little too much to handle, especially with the Karn threatening to activate again next turn and get some other big baddie. And that's not even to account for the Kozilek Butcher and Truce that's about to come down and ruin his day.
That's an interesting concession from Bruni there. The quick concession tips off to your opponent that you don't have an answer to draw to for that Ensnaring Bridge.
But you want to save time too, because the games can go long because of all the shuffling and things.
Yeah, but it would have only ended up being one turn to conceal that information. That said, he does have answers to the bridge in the sideboard.
Right.
So maybe he wants his opponent to think that he doesn't have an answer to the bridge, and then bring in the Cape commands and get it.
All right, well, I'm gonna have Ross here check over the sideboards and give us his expert analysis on how he thinks these players should sideboard. Let's see if they agree. Let's start with the Grixis Shadow player. That's going to be Zine Bruni.
Yeah, so as I said, has 2 copies of Kolaghan's Command in the sideboard. Those could be useful at, blowing up various artifacts, whether it's Ensnaring Bridge or, maybe an Oblivion Stone that Waddell doesn't have the mana to activate yet. We got 2 Fluster Storms, not great. An Engineered Explosives, too slow to deal with those cheap, stars and maps. 2 Spell Pierce. I actually like these.
Yeah.
You can counter a card on turn 3. You can, if you're on the play, you can just pass the mana up and Spell Pierce their Expedition map.
It's interesting to see actually Spell Pierce instead of something like Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm may be a little more powerful, able to counter things more, assuredly. However, Spell Pierce is a bit more diverse in what it can target. Flusterstorm limited to just instants and sorceries, but all these planeswalkers, all these artifacts, the Spell Pierce is great against.
Well, it does have both, so he's just loading up on counter spells. 1 Mystical Dispute as well, so 5 different counters, and running the gamut of different 1-mana cheap counter spells.
It's good to be able to get all of those dead removal spells out of your deck. Those Fatal Pushes and Terminate type things, they can all come out.
Yeah, we got 2 copies of Turok. That might actually end up being relevant. Tron mulligans really aggressively. If you're able to stall them a bit with a Pierce, a Turok could strip them of a lot of relevant, material.
Any disruption is good disruption, in my opinion.
And then 2 Unlicensor is not great. 2 more copies of Dress Down to supplement the 1 in the main deck. I like these in this matchup. Not only, can it help you deal with the Wormcoil Engine, it also lets you go for these quick kills with a Death Shadow.
Absolutely.
And this is definitely a matchup that you got to close out the game really quickly. So I'm liking 2 Dress Down, 2 Turok, and 2 Spell Pierce, and definitely going to be able to get rid of a lot of these poopy removal spells.
So one thing to note about Dress Down and why it can be so powerful with these Death Shadows, for example, in that game right there, if Bruni's Death Shadows are only 2/2, they can actually attack through the Ensnaring Bridge. And since Dress Down can be played at instant speed, after those Death Shadows have been declared attackers, the Dress Down can come down and deal 26 damage. So while it didn't come up in that specific scenario, that is sometimes a way you can cheese your opponent even in the face of something as powerful as Ensnaring Bridge.
Yeah. On Waddell's side, because of the Karn package, not many options for actually bringing cards in. Most of his
no changes.
Yeah, most of his non-witch targets are different disenchant effects. A Force of Vigor, 2 Nature's Flames, not applicable in this matchup. Might want to bring in like the Oblivion Stone in the sideboard because it's pretty slow to try to wish for.
Yep.
But other than that, you know, not really much that I want in my deck as opposed to in the sideboard to grab with those Karns. So, yeah, I could definitely see a same 60 situation.
Well, both players shuffling up here for game number 2. Thanks to Ross for his analysis on those sideboards and how he thinks those players are going to go. Josh Waddell up a game thanks to the power of an Ensnaring Bridge and that tutor package with Karn the Great Creator. Even though Mycosynth Lattice was banned, still a powerful effect and a diverse way to play with all this extra mana.
Also a nice thing to do if your opponent does have Disruption for your Tron and it takes you a while to assemble it. Like, Karn is something that you can play on 4 lands that aren't Tron.
Yeah. We'll get these live totals updated for you in just a second. The game has not begun yet. It's still 20-20. Zine Bruni here gonna be on the play.
Keeping 7 while Waddell, like most Tron players, taking a mulligan.
Yep. And we know, though, that the London Mulligan, a huge advantage for these Tron decks, and they can mitigate those mulligans pretty aggressively by just having Tron in the first few turns. And if they're able to assemble it, that's way more important than having a 7-card versus 5-card opener.
This is the best mulliganing deck in all of Modern, so you should expect to mulligan a lot when you play it. You should actively want to mulligan a lot because, you know, you want to have turn 3 Tron as often as possible. And, you know, 3 cards to make Tron and 1 threat is certainly better than a hand that is very speculative to even assemble Tron, even if you have a couple more threats, you know, should you hit.
One of the mainstay players on the SCG Tour back in the day, Adam Francie, big fan of Tron. I used to watch him play all the time, doing commentary. One day after the London Mulligan came, he was playing Tron, kept a 7-card hand that was just like 1 Tron piece, Forest, Sylvan Scrying. And after the match, he got obliterated by some aggressive deck. He was just too slow, didn't do anything. I walked over to him, and we have like a nice repartee. And I tell him straight up, I'm like, look, man, game's different now. You got to mulligan those hands. Tron hitting on turn 3 is paramount. And if you do not do it, throw your hand back. A 3-card hand with Tron is better than any 7-card hand without Tron. And once I started that mentality when I was playing Tron on Magic Online and testing, when I was playing against players playing Tron, the more times they started to mulligan, the more often they would win.
Second mulligan here from Waddell, so down to 5. This looks like it could be a keeper.
Yeah, doesn't look too bad. It looks like at least 1 Tron piece and a map that I saw. Maybe this is better than many 4-card hands, but I guess it was only a 1-lander. Maybe he has to throw it back. With the London Mulligan, you get to pick the best of a bunch of 7, and you get to keep, like, you know, your best 4 or your best 5. And as long as those 4 or 5 can find the Tron on turn 3 or 4, I think that's a keepable hand.
Yep, and it looks like these first 3 hands were unable to do it. So Waddell going to be looking at his 4th hand of this game. And hoping to find a nice one of, you know, 2 Tron pieces and a map, or 2 Tron pieces, a star, and a scrying.
All right, real quick though, how many people do you think at home hate Tron and are going 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, just hoping that they keep mulliganing?
Oh, maybe all of them.
Maybe just Ryan Overturn. All right, Waddell taking a look at his 4-card hand here, and I think this one's actually pretty bad too. Looks like maybe just a Forest is the only land. I see a Sylvan Scrying and Oblivion Stone. Maybe it's going to keep. Trying to figure out the 4 cards to keep. Maybe it's Sylvan Scrying, Forest, and a Tron piece, and then putting back 3 payoffs. We'll see.
Yeah, you definitely want to just keep the cards that get you Tron.
Yep.
You can find the payoffs later.
All right, looks like we're ready to go here. Both players keeping their hands.
That's a rough 4.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's the way it goes, though. You sign up to play Tron, you aggressively mulligan looking for Tron, and sometimes you just don't find it. You can't really afford to go. I would have gone to 3. I think this hand is quite bad. But
are those Nature's Claims?
I think they are Nature's Claims. I wonder what they're for. Ragavan connects. That's going to deal 2 damage and find the top card.
Oof. That's a Tron piece.
Yeah, I needed that Tron piece drawn. Treasure token here. Shocking, and can play some more threats here and maybe hold up some interaction. A great start here for Bruni, especially if he has some of those interactive pieces. Tron lane on 2. Let's see if he has Scrying. Goes for it. He does. See if it resolves. Doesn't. Spell Pierce takes it down. And a Surveil from the Dragon Rage Channeler.
Oof, this is an ideal start for Zine here. A ton of pressure. Was able to disrupt with the Spell Pierce. Has even a dress down in hand if you can find a shadow to go for a very quick kill on top of that.
Yeah, he actually bit a shadow just there. His life total not quite able to get under 13 this turn. So choosing to put down the graveyard to push toward Delirium. Now with 3 card types in the grave, a Tarn, a Shadow, and a Spell Pierce. Let's see if he can find the 4th type with a Sorcery or something similar.
We may see an attack here for 3 and then a dress down on the end step, or on Waddell's next turn, but not on the end step. So it gets sacrificed on Waddell's end step and becomes the 4th type for the next turn.
Yep. Has a Kolaghan's Command, it looks like, in hand, but that one, not a whole lot of great targets. I wouldn't hate just going for a Kolaghan's Command for the hand, though. Make him discard, deal 2. He's going to make himself discard, so he's going to try to get Delirium this turn and actually put an immense amount of pressure on Waddell. Still 2 turns away from Tron. This is going to enable Delirium. He's going to discard. Okay, I'm confused now. Maybe he targeted himself with the 2 damage. It looked like he was targeting himself with the discard to get rid of the dress down.
I think he targeted himself with the damage, so future... Oh, he has a shadow.
Ah, nice. And he has the dress down, so he actually is threatening lethal next turn. Great sequence from Brunny, and let's see if Waddell is able to actually cobble anything together.
Exiled another Tron land with the Ragavan. Ragavan might assemble Tron faster than Joshua Waddell does this game.
Yeah. Now this is kind of funny. The Nature's Claims can mess up the Death Shadow, especially if he went for the dress down. It would actually kill the dress down and gain him 4 life and kill Death Shadow.
Yeah, I think that might be the reason why the claims come in, but he doesn't even get the opportunity because of the tap out for Oblivion Stone.
Yeah, you have to think Zine Brunny's happy to win the game, but he's probably a little sad to waste such an excellent draw against the Mold of Force stumble draw from the Tron opponent.
Yeah, sometimes you get those free games against Tron, but yeah, this would have been an excellent draw even against a solid hand. Waddell.
Heads up play there with the Kolaghan's Command 2 to deal 2 damage to self. We saw original version of Death Shadow do that with Lightning Bolt and Tarfire quite often just to enable an earlier Death Shadow. Stuck at 13, didn't find the extra land to deal himself damage, but heads up play there. And the Mulligan to 4, low resource draw from the Tron deck, made it an easy dub, and now we're tied up 1-1.
I mean, that was what, a turn 4 kill, because the Kolaghan's Command was cast turn 3.
Yep, sure was.
Yeah, turn 4 kill with the Spell Pierce on the play.
Easy game.
Doesn't get better than that. So, folks shuffling here. I'm wondering, we brought these claims in definitely to try to, tag a Death Shadow with them.
Tag a Death Shadow, but also to stop the, dress down combo kill. It's like a 2-for sometimes. I don't love it. I like the more proactive game plan. Being that reactive as a Tron deck just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. I wonder if that's something that Waddell likes to do on the draw, when he might fall too far behind to the disruption and low curve of Death Shadow, might change it up on the play here and just be more proactive, but maybe just something he likes to do. Not a ton of targets to get those claims off on your opponent's stuff, just treasure tokens, and you can always sack the treasure in response, so that's never going to gain them life,
right?
And the dress downs, but maybe maybe that's a man that's probably lost to a lot of dress downs in the last
probably, yeah, probably. All right, while we're between games here, I want to shout out our sponsor, G Fuel Energy Formula. That comes in powder form or cans. They're sponsoring the store here at Apex Gaming. We're also sponsored by Wings Etc. Grill and Pub, a family fun environment with some great food. Great times. Ross and I have eaten there back-to-back nights, and I'm planning on going again tonight. LuxuryPlaystyle.com, also a sponsor of this weekend's festivities. You can check out LuxuryPlaystyle.com and get some custom, cool metal tokens. If you want to flex and style on your friends at F&M or the Commander tables, make sure to check out LuxuryPlaystyle.com. My favorite token so far that I've seen was the treasure token. Those aren't quite for sale yet, or they weren't yesterday, but they should be on sale quite soon. So if you're a fan of treasure, what's the 2-drop red creature, Dockside Extortionist? Everyone loves and hates that card. The front of the token is just a 1 treasure, but the back of it is a 5 treasure. So if you're planning on making a ton of treasures, you only need a couple.
If you're planning on activating Magda and finding a dragon.
Yeah, fair.
That's what you need.
You need to dream a little bigger, darling. Magda does not make enough treasures. Dockside Extortion makes a boatload of treasures.
It does look like Zine sideboarded the way I thought he would. We saw all of those, sideboard cards, Dress Down, Spell Pierce, and Kolaghan's Command that game, putting in some work. I imagine it was a bunch of removal going away. There's a push, a bolt, a terminate, and 4 Unholy Heat. So
a lot of those got to come out.
Can very easily cut 6 of those 7.
All right, looks like we got a mulligan from Waddell again. A thing that happens a lot with the Tron deck. His hand didn't have any Tron pieces. Looked like it was Forest, Cascading Cataracts, and a couple green spells, and a Relic of Progenitus. Not good enough. Zine Brunny with Grixis Shadow keeps the 7. You have to imagine it's got to be pretty good. The Shadow deck's mulligan pretty aggressively, too, for pressure and disruption. So we'll see if Waddell can find a good 6 and maybe present some real threatening stuff for Zine to interact with.
But being on the play, I think, makes a pretty huge difference. Sort of incentivizing Zine to not play a 1-mana creature so he can pierce a Sylvan Scrying.
Yep, or just Thoughtseize something too.
Yeah.
You know, taking one of those powerful 2-drop tutor effects, Ancient Stirrings or Sylvan Scrying.
Thoughtseize can't nab an Expedition map if that's the way Waddell's hand goes. But so it definitely limits Zine's ability to interact.
All right, I think we got a keeper here. This is a 6-card hand that has multiple Tron pieces or ways to find them, and some things to cycle like Chromatic Star and Sphere. Waddell has to throw 1 back, and then we'll be on the play here for game number 3. These players both 2-0 here in our 6th round of Swiss events as we try to find 2 winners to send to DreamHack Atlanta in November. This is an RCQ with 2 slots.
Feels like they might be talking to the judge.
Maybe just waiting to see if they're ready to start yet. But okay. Waddell does only have to put back 1 card. He's just trying to pick the perfect 6, I suppose.
Knows he wants to keep the 2 Tron lands on the map. That's where we're...
Maybe kind of giving away some information here, kind of setting cards aside. I'd probably put back something like Ancient Stirrings. You know, it does take some time to get online. You want all your Tron pieces. You want your map. And it looks like we're off to the races. Turn 1 Urzaland. It looks like a power plant and map. Looks like he's got turn 2... 2nd Tron piece and can crack the map, but needs a payoff still, but that can be found via Ancient Stirrings or some other top deck.
Interesting that he put a Stirrings back because he has no threats. I would almost put back the Forest.
Well, he still kept the Stirrings.
But he had 2 of them.
Yeah, but he still has 1, is what I'm saying. So
but he keeps Forest and a Star. You can just use the Star to make green and cast the first Stirrings. Either you hit a threat and good, or you hit a Forest and then, or some other form of green mana. Another Star, another, an Expedition map, anything like that.
All right, Zine Brunny start, not too shabby either. Has turn 1 Ragavan, finds a, I don't even know, Expedition something or another. Looks like it's got Emrakul on it. I have no clue. Maybe it is Emrakul, but it doesn't look like it.
That's such a short name.
There makes more sense. All right.
That's a 1 of.
Now we have a turn 2 Ledger Shredder. And we're going to play a Mishra's Bauble and trigger it. This is going to let us connive, draw a discard. Probably going to get rid of this extra Ragavan. Put a counter, filter a little bit.
Once again, a very fast start here from Zine with a lot of early pressure. And the question is, does he have the disruption to stop Waddell for long enough to close the game out?
Yeah, needs a Spell Pierce or something here, hopefully, to stall out a Karn or some payoff. But he doesn't know that Waddell doesn't currently have one. So Waddell going to need a little help from the top of the deck. Can go for a Chromatic Star and cycle and cast Ancient Stirrings and dig for something still with about 5 mana left, I believe.
Yep.
And maybe play something like Karn the Great Creator.
Or a Golos. Tireless Pilgrim.
All right, we're going to probably see this Bauble cracked here before the end step.
Yeah, I just wanted to wait for Waddell to crack the map so you get the information.
Yep, and then Brunny's going to draw a card. Let's see if he remembers. Maybe he did during upkeep, but if not, then he forgot the trigger.
I think he did it.
All right, 3rd Tron piece. Things are online now. Looks like we have a Relic of Progenitus as well as a Chromatic.
I need to start on that Relic. Well, let's start on a Star.
All right, we're going to draw a card as green. Now we have 6 floating, so Wormcoil off the top could be cast. If not, we could go for a Stirrings and look for something.
There's an Urza Saga, which is a little slow.
Yeah, not the best here, but Karn gets found.
Could also take the Warping Will and answer the Ragavan, but I kind of like getting a threat.
I like getting the threat too, and you know that the Kolaghan's Command, you know that the Ensnaring Bridge garnered a concession in the first game. Could go for that and try to empty your hand over the next few turns, but you do also know that Kolaghan's Command came in from Shadow, so it's not necessarily game over this time.
No potential tricks there.
All right, here comes Karn. No Spell Pierce off the Treasure. Let's see if Brunny casts anything. Oh, he does have a Spell Pierce off the Treasure. Holy, what a sequence from Brunny. What a nice draw.
Though I think Brony missed his Ledger Shredder trigger though. Could have triggered off of the Karn or off the Stirrings actually.
Right.
So missed a chance to pump that Shredder and dig a little deeper into his deck.
One of those things that it's hard to remember because it's triggering off your opponent's stuff, but one of the strengths of Ledger Shredder is that it punishes you for playing 2 spells into it.
Which is what most people want to do. So punishes your opponent for doing good things.
All right, we reveal Kozilek, Butcher of Truth off the Ragavan. Can't quite cast that one. A little short.
Well, that's a good one to exile, though, because Waddell's getting up there in mana. You don't want to be staring that one down. And here we see the Turok. Mentioned this one as a good sideboard option as well. Only 3 cards left in hand.
The acceleration from the Ragavan paying dividends here. Absolutely backbreaking.
Yeah, and that's going to add another 4 power to the battlefield. So now we're sitting at 8 power. That's a 2-turn clock.
Yep. Now, important to note, the Turok +1/+1 counters from the discard is a trigger that can be missed. So if he remembers to put the 2 counters on the Turok, it's going to get a bit bigger here. The kicker on it is basically just casting him to Turok, but the static ability is the one that's adding the counters.
Come on, guys. We could have just done it. Roll for the one you keep. Roll for the one you keep.
Well, he's only got a Force in hand, so he's likely going to crack this Relic of Progenitus to look for another piece of action. Finds a Karn the Great Creator. That's going to allow him to essentially empty his hand so he can potentially get that Ensnaring Bridge online.
Yeah, I think that's what we got to go for and hope there's no K command waiting, because that's the only way you're stabilizing this battlefield.
Yep. Now, Karn's the play. Now, we'll see if Brony actually remembers to hit the Connive again, because the cast Ensnaring Bridge is going to allow him to dig a little bit deeper. But if he forgets again, that could be bad.
Waddell actually tapping a little awkwardly here. Would have been better to cast the Karn off of the 2-mana Tron lands and then use the tower. And then you can hold up the forest and crack the relic on Brony's end step. Now, that's not necessarily relevant for the bridge because none of Brony's creatures have 1 power, but it could be relevant if he draws a discard spell.
Okay, so we remember the Connive. It's going to discard an extra Ledger Shredder, and now Brony is at the mercy of the top of his deck. Needs Kolaghan's Command some way to unlock the Karn the Great Creator. Actually finds Unholy Heat, so he can take care of the Karn. That's going to leave Waddell with no real action other than the popping of the Relic of Progenitus, but the Ensnaring Bridge is still protecting his life total easily.
And does Zine have Delirium, though?
Oh, that's a good question. Perhaps not.
I see Ledger Shredder in the graveyard. I see Mishra's Bauble, and now we're getting an iteration. But is there? We've fetched at some point. Now he's at 14. We have 3 Shocklands, but there might not be a fetch land there.
I don't think there is. I think he's short on Delirium.
One. I think there's a Thoughtseize, a Dress Down, and maybe a Counterspell of some kind. It's something blue, it looks like.
I don't know.
Now, Waddell chose not to pop that relic at all, noting the awkward way he tapped his mana, and gets paid off for it because the Thoughtseize comes off the iteration, now not able to take that card. Does cost himself a mana effectively.
Finds a fetch land though, so now can get Delirium by fetching and then kill the Karn with the Unholy Heat. There's no cards in hand, so the Thoughtseize would just be to trigger Connive, but I don't think it's necessary to do that, so might want to conserve life total a little bit.
Yeah. We're going to trigger Connive off the Unholy Heat anyway, so...
Yeah, normally the Death Shadow deck wants to deal itself a bunch of damage to make those Death Shadows bigger, but in the face of Ensnaring Bridge, a smaller Death Shadow is actually better.
And Shadow's not attacking at this point anyway, so might as well make it big, so once you kill the bridge, you have a big attack.
Yep.
Though you do have to be wary of a potential Walking Ballista. Don't want to put yourself, in dead range if you don't have to.
All right, let's see what the play is here from Brony. And then Holy Heat will allow him to Connive as well. He's going to go for the Thoughtseize, though, triggering the Connive. See what he discards. An extra land, so no buff. Gonna lose 2 down to 9. No cards in hand for Waddell, so just a cycle. And then Unholy Heat here, gonna kill the Karn. Maybe he was actually short of Delirium without the Thoughtseize. No, he had the iteration. Yeah, never mind. Perhaps a misstep, but it's okay. The way it happens is Relic of Progenitus is gonna eat 1 thing, but we can just eat a redundant card, and then the Karn dead to the Unholy Heat. And we'll see if Brony can draw next turn, but we go back Waddell's way.
So now, sort of actually maximally punished there for Waddell. If he just leaves up the forest, that relic can, make the Unholy Heat only deal 2 damage. You keep your Karn around.
Right.
You don't get to wish the next turn, but you can plus set up a wish the following turn.
Yeah. We talked about this yesterday. Minor hiccups, minor missteps like that can make all the difference in a format with so many powerful cards.
Yeah.
Brony here finds another expressive iteration. What a top deck. Digs 3 deeper.
Digging hard for this Kolaghan's Command. Finds Unholy Heat, Death Shadow, and...
It's like a blue card, maybe an island. I don't think the deck plays that many basics, if any.
Usually an island and a swamp.
All right, 1 in hand. That's a polluted delta. Okay.
Or is it a swamp and a mount? There's usually
it
2
changes
basics.
from now and then.
Yeah.
All right. Plays polluted delta, puts in Holy Heat in hand. That's going to protect him from a future planeswalker. The second letter shredder here is going to connive. Was pitch an extra land. Still digging hard for that Kolaghan's Command.
I wonder if it would have been better to sequence differently there. I know you almost always want an iteration first, but would have gotten a second connive trigger if he led on that ledger shredder, dug just a little bit deeper.
All right, finds a blast zone, potentially powerful top deck here that could protect him even if the Staring Bridge dies. Blast zone's the land for turn. Has Ancient Stirrings, I think, as his other card drawn. Let's see if he wants to dig for a big threat.
That blast zone can also just level up to 2 and deal with 3 of the creatures on Bruni's side of the battlefield.
Right. All right, Ancient Stirrings finds a bunch of bricks so far, and a card in the Great Crater is the find. That's a heater. And that one's going to be protected from attacks, but Zine does have access to another Unholy Heat, though we are out of Delirium for now. We'll see if the Karn is going to be cast and what it's going to find.
I am inclined to go for the Golos in the sideboard, I think, as long as we have a Cataracts.
All right, well, the second spell cast here will trigger these Ledger Shredders, and it looks like Zine has a tough choice here between Unholy Heat and the Expressive Iteration. He just drew another Expressive Iteration next turn. Going to allow him to dig even deeper, looking for Kolaghan's Command.
Yeah.
And I think he drew another Death Shadow. Okay, and he discards that because he has plenty of pressure on the table.
Yeah, you can't worry that much about the Karn. You know you have to kill the bridge to beat him, so take the iteration.
All right, we're going to go pilfering the sideboard here, looking for what he believes to be the best answer. Doesn't... actually does have 6 mana. Could go for a Chalice of the Void on 3 and lock out Kolaghan's Command from being able to answer that Ensnaring Bridge. I don't know that Zine actually has another answer to that Ensnaring Bridge. I saw him, he looked at the Chalice for just a second, but he might be going for a big baddie instead. We'll see what he
looked at.
decides.
Liquid Metal Coating 2. There's some options here. I kind of like the Chalice play, but it's hard to do that in a closed deck list.
That's true. Doesn't necessarily know what the answers are, but I mean, what other artifact destruction do you think the Grixis, Death Shadow decks are going to play?
Yeah, I mean that's true, but it is kind of a risk. If there's like an Abrade there in the sideboard, not super common these days, but you never know. If they've got an Ottawar, they probably don't have an Ottawar on their mana base.
All right, he takes a page out of your book, finds the Golos. Gonna go ahead and cast that and probably go get a land. Now, when he does cast it, it's gonna trigger the Connives, but he chooses to hold it in hand. Doesn't want to trigger Connive.
Guess really wants to get this Blast Zone up to 2.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Zine Brunny here, though, gonna play an Expressive Iteration, digging for that Kolaghan's Command. Gotta unlock the Ensnaring Bridge so he can win the game. Doesn't find it, but it looks like he has an Engineering Explosives, but unfortunately the Karn does shut it down. And he discarded the Unholy Heat, so can't quite take care of the Karn this turn either.
Well, EE would have been a potential answer to Chalice of the Void.
Yeah, that's true too. Good call. Well, we can fetch here and play Engineering Explosives for 3, and then do some conniving.
Yeah. And then you're digging for Unholy Heat as well. You increase your number of outs.
Yep.
That said, one turn with this Blast Zone is gonna obliterate your battlefield. And this level up to 2 on the unstep, deal with both Shredders and the Turok. Just that Ragavan is not going to be nearly enough pressure with Bedell still at a healthy 14 life.
Yeah, and the Golos will be able to block it next turn too.
Yep.
He'll be able to blow up the Blast Zone and block.
Yeah, so just have it all covered.
All right, fetches a basic Swamp. Probably going to play the... Well, it doesn't actually have access to 2 red, so can't play Engineering Explosives for 3 and play Unholy Heat in the same sequence. So look like we're going to go for X equals 3. We're going to trigger the Connives, going to loot for 2.
It's a dress down, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those dress downs that has a ton of text on it or whatever, I think.
And
Dragon Rage Channeler, not great here. And then we're going to put a counter and tapped Watergrave more than likely. What looked like a great start from Brunny just completely countered by this ensnaring bridge from Waddell. Not a whole lot you can do about it. And while the engineering explosives looks like it could be able to interact with the bridge, that Karn's static ability makes all those artifacts on the other side of the table irrelevant.
Yeah, had one piece of disruption here, really needed two.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that means that Tron gets to start doing things. And
well, the shields are down. This could be a Karn the Great Crater minus for a walking ballista that might have been lethal or over the next 2 turns, but
it's a Karn plus on the EE, which now just dies. So maybe playing that engineer explosive is not the best.
Yeah, perhaps. Now that's down. Most of the board disappears. The ensnaring bridge still alive. Golos comes down. Gonna tutor up a land. Let's see what he goes and gets.
I'm guessing Cascading Cataracts.
Yep, that's going to allow for a lot of free cards cast off the top of the deck. So Brunny going to have to answer a lot of different stuff now and doesn't have enough pressure. Even if he finds the Kolaghan's command for Ensnaring Bridge, might actually have to burn it on the Golos, which is kind of embarrassing. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, this one I think is all over, but the Crying Gigantha not going to help.
Rarely does. Rarely does. You have to imagine, maybe he should be playing some Street Race or something. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Gigantha is really good in some of the grindier matchups. But
one of the issues is that, you mentioned Stubborn Denial before the match started. That's what Shadow decks used to play. Now they're on Drown in the Loch, which is significantly worse against Tron. And because Tron isn't that popular, you're not sideboarding really powerful cards for the matchup like Ceremonious Rejection that they also used to have.
We need to stop because that can't be played for free on his own turn. I think the judge has already caught it. It's okay. The dress down is on the table. It was cast during Brunny's end step, so it's going to stay on the table for a full turn cycle. And while Waddell does have the Force of Vigor, the Force cycle from Modern Horizons can only be pitched on your opponent's turn. So Waddell can't make that illegal play, and we're just going to back up. Yeah. Might get a warning, but it was caught very quickly.
We kind of hard cast it with Cascading Cataracts in that forest, but not really going to get us anywhere because then you don't have the mana left over to activate the Golos.
Right.
So might as well just let the dress down die to its own trigger.
Goes and gets another foil that I have no idea what it does.
Feels like a Worm Coil Engine.
It's either warm. I mean, there's a Snaring Bridge in play. It might be a walking.
Oh yeah. Maybe.
It's impossible to tell. And he's tapping a ton of mana, so it's got to be something expensive.
Some sort of Eldrazi.
I can't get Eldrazi with Karn, so.
Chat saying it's Sundering Titan.
Sundering Titan? That's badass. Okay, let's blow up some land.
Forest about to go away too. No, it doesn't have any abilities. So we got a 7/10.
All right, maybe that dress down from Brunny gonna pay some dividends here, and floated I guess a green mana, tapped a bunch of colorless for the Sundering Titan, and now casting the Sylvan Scrying. Gonna go get another Urza's Tower. A slight mishap from Waddell. You have to imagine something like Walking Ballista would be a bit more valuable. Could kill Ragavan, could threaten to deal the 8 damage. That your own Ensnaring Bridge is keeping that Sundering Titan from actually attacking.
Does Walking Ballista enter with any counters against the dress down?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Probably just a turn where you just wait.
Yep, just do nothing. Cast Gigantha. That one, 5/5, doesn't really match up well against Sundering Titan.
That counts as doing nothing.
Now, Golos has the potential to activate. Karn can minus and tutor again. No dress down on the table, so carte blanche.
That's a quick Karn.
Yeah, this might be Walking Ballista for all of it. Might have 16 mana here with these Urza's Towers. And that's going to be it.
Yep.
Seen Bruni extends the hand. Gigantha, not quite good enough against Tron.
Kind of disappointed we didn't get to see Golos get activated.
Yeah, we got to see it get activated yesterday, though. And it was an instant concession after the card flipped off the top. So it is what it is. But we're going to have Waddell take it down 2-1. Tron defeats Death Shadow in what I would consider somewhat of an upset.
Yeah. Well, I think the way that Shadow decks have been built recently makes them significantly worse against Tron.
Sure, but that sequence, though, Eternal and Ragavan, turn 2, threat plus Spell Pierce, that was a 6 sequence, and he just got murdered.
Yeah.